name is Maureen Houel, and I'm the former general manager of Coup in France. Coup was a moped free-floating service created by the German group Bosch in 2017, and Paris was the biggest city with a fleet of 2,200 mopeds. Bosch decided a few months ago not to invest anymore in this venture, so the service is unfortunately closed. Right now, I'm finalizing the shutdown of the French entity and looking for a new exciting adventure. I spot one weak signal during this crisis. It's how some cities adapt their urban space and how quickly and easily they are able to do it. The confinement points out how much public space is dedicated to cars. It helps every urbanite realize this. Roads represent 50 to 80% of urban spaces in cities, and sidewalks are 3 times narrower than roads, so it's very difficult to respect confinement. to respect social distancing during confinement. So imagine when the virus will still be there and confinement over and cars on the roads. It will be hard. So in order to help people respect this distanciation, some cities across the world created temporary bike lanes, extended bike lanes, some of them closed roads. It's actually the dream of any sustainability advocate. The first city to do this was Bogota, mid-March. In one night, they created 22 kilometers of cycling lane, and mayor said it was a permanent move. And now we have Mexico, Berlin, Budapest, Boston, Washington, Auckland. Auckland created 119 kilometers dedicated to pedestrians and cyclists. And yesterday, the first French city, Montpellier, announced they were gonna do such measures. And what's interesting, it's done simply adding plots or painting lines on the ground. Some cities also closed roads to cars like New York, London, adding simply barriers or concrete blocks. This is called tactical urbanism, and I hope some of the emergency measures will become permanent and give ideas to other cities also, showing that unlike what we think, cities can be adapted quickly and with low cost. I think it's interesting to do 2 historical comparisons. So after the financial crisis of 2009, tactical urbanism appeared in the States. After the recession, there were plenty of empty lots in the American cities as capital dried up. So out-of-work architects and designers were allowed to find temporary new uses for those empty lots with low costs. And some of these measures became permanent features in the urban landscape. This is what tactical urbanism is, and it's quite developed in the States. It's unfortunately not in Europe, probably because of bureaucracy, but let's hope it will change. The second example is the crisis of 1973. After the oil crisis, Netherlands started car-free Sunday because they didn't want to be so oil dependent, and also because there were no Dutch car manufacturers to lobby against this idea. And thanks to this car-free Sunday, it created one of the most bicycle-friendly countries in the world. So I hope the coronavirus crisis will help develop the usage of bicycle and walking, will have a positive impact on the climate crisis, and will make safer, healthier, and more resilient cities. It's very hard to predict the impact of the crisis on the behaviors because it's an unprecedented situation. And to imagine a long term, we also have to take into account the midterm once the confinement is over, but the threat is still there. We will live with the fear during a year or so till the vaccine is available. So I imagined 5 trends. The first one is a short term. It's more individualism because of the threat. It can be turned on the bad side. It means more people on their own car, more people on a thermic moped, so more congestion and pollution than before. On the good side, more people on a bicycle and an e-bike and an e-scooter, more people walking or on an electric moped. So I think the weather is a good thing. We're lucky it's summer and not a pouring rain winter, so people are more disposed to walk or bike. But the public transport will face a major problem to respect social distanciation, even if a large number of people use their own mean of transport, so transfer, density will still be too high. I mean, in Greater Paris, 1 million people use public transport every day. So the second trend, I mentioned it already a lot. You can see I'm a bicycle advocate, but I hope short-term habits will become permanent, and there will be more pedestrians and cyclists in the streets, more space for them, and less space for cars. I recently read a study made by Ipsos in China post-COVID that showed that the number of people in public transport was divided by 2, and in private cars was multiplied by 2. This is a really bad signal. I hope it will not be the case in France. But I think it's the opportunity for public authorities to give more space to soft mobility, to subsidize those modes, to create new constraints and regulations on car use, and to use nudging and gamification also to promote this mode. Third trend is less mobility. Right now we're experiencing almost zero mobility. We're forced at a large scale to work from home. We do online meetings all day long. I think it's interesting that employees experience this, but also employers and companies, maybe old school companies, will realize that it's good for profitability because employers save time they usually spend in transport, but they're happier when they can do partial remote work. So it will reduce CO2 emissions if there is less mobility. Fourth trend is maybe mobility will be spread over the day with less people on peak hours. Flexible working hours are very interesting because they spread the travel demand beyond the conventional peak of commuting in the morning and in the evening. So it reduces road congestion, but it also reduces density in public transport at peak hours. And it's also good for free-floating operators because they have more vehicles available throughout the day. And the last and the fifth trend I identified is increased mobility of goods. People right now are experiencing the convenience of home delivery, and they might keep the habit, so it will lead to a rise of home deliveries. The risk is that it increases car traffic. So let's see what public authorities do to promote clean last mile solutions, more than what they're doing already. And also startups will be needed to find smart solutions. Yes, I definitely think the crisis will accelerate the market consolidation. I identify 3 reasons. The first one is cash flow. Cash is key, of course, as well as in plenty of other industries, and startups are not very good at cash flow. So probably we'll see actors disappearing and other being acquired. The second reason is seasonality for some operators, for bicycles, scooters, and mopeds operators. Spring is a key period to acquire new clients because the weather is nice. And those clients bring revenue till autumn. So if you acquire them later, then their lifetime value is shorter. And also you acquire less customers. And the third reason is fear of sharing. We saw that the virus will lead to more individualism. So sharing operators might suffer from a will for individualist mobility, especially cars operators, I think, which offer a very confined environment. Let's hope for the best, that startups will survive and that the virus will contribute to making our cities fluid and breathable and pollute less to minimize the coming climate crisis.